The wind howled across the frozen plains of Novus 6, carrying ice crystals that sparkled like diamond dust in the pale light of 3 moons. Lieutenant Kira Winter stood at her observation post's viewport, scanning the barren landscape through thermal imaging goggles. This remote research station was considered a dead-end assignment, monitoring an uninhabited ice planet for potential resource deposits. But something about tonight felt different. A flash of heat signature caught her attention, larger than any native fauna recorded in their databases. Kira adjusted the scanner's sensitivity, focusing on the anomaly. The reading showed a large mass surrounded by 2 smaller heat sources, all moving slowly through a ravine half a kilometer from the station. Protocol dictated reporting any unusual findings immediately to Central Command. But something made Kira hesitate. The movement pattern seemed erratic, desperate. Making a split-second decision, she grabbed her emergency kit and thermal suit. "Computer, log temporary station exit for routine equipment check," she commanded, strapping on her plasma pistol. The station's AI acknowledged with a quiet beep as the airlock cycled. The brutal cold hit her despite the suit's protection. Kira activated her night vision implant and began tracking the heat signatures. As she approached the ravine, she heard it, a low, keening sound that seemed to resonate with the planet's very core. What she found stopped her in her tracks. A massive wolf-like creature lay partially sheltered beneath an ice overhang, its fur a shifting pattern of deep purple and midnight blue. 2 cubs, no larger than Earth House cats, huddled against their mother's side. The adult's breathing was labored, and Kira could see why. A deep gash ran along its flank, the wound slowly freezing in the bitter cold. Kira had heard stories of the Lunaris wolves, legendary creatures that once roamed the galaxy's ice worlds before being hunted nearly to extinction for their ability to manipulate gravitational fields. But she'd never expected to encounter one, let alone an injured mother with cubs. The wolf's eyes met hers, not the eyes of a simple beast, but swirling pools of silver that held ancient intelligence. The cubs whimpered, pressing closer to their mother as she tried to rise, bearing impressive fangs despite her weakness. "Easy," Kira whispered, slowly reaching for her medical scanner. "I want to help." The wolf's growl faded to a questioning rumble. Kira remained still, letting the creature read her intent. After what seemed like an eternity, the wolf's head lowered slightly, not submission, but permission. Kira's scanner confirmed her fears. The wound was deep, and infection was setting in. The cubs were severely undernourished. None of them would survive another night in the open. She knew what she had to do, even though it violated every protocol in the book. These weren't just animals. They were survivors of an ancient species that deserved protection. The station had a sealed storage bay that could be converted into a shelter. With careful planning, she could keep them hidden from routine inspections. "I have a safe place," she said softly, knowing the wolf could sense her meaning if not her words. "Will you trust me?" The wolf studied her for long moments before struggling to stand. Kira moved to support her weight, and to her amazement, the massive creature allowed it. The cubs followed close behind as they began the slow journey through the darkness. With each step through the frozen night, Kira knew she was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Her career, her future, everything would change from this moment forward. But as one of the cubs brushed against her leg, seeking warmth, she knew she'd made the right choice. They were halfway to the station when the wolf suddenly stiffened, her ears pricked forward. Kira followed her gaze upward and felt her blood run cold. A shadow passed across the moons, too large to be a cloud, too structured to be natural. Someone else was coming to Novus 6, and Kira had a sinking feeling they weren't here for the planet's resources. The next 12 hours tested every skill Kira had learned in her years of military service. Getting 3 Lunaris wolves into the station's storage bay without triggering security protocols had required timing, ingenuity, and more than a little luck. Now, watching the mother wolf rest on a makeshift bed of thermal blankets, Kira studied the mysterious ship that had taken up orbit around Novus 6. "Display vessel analysis," she commanded. The station's AA projected a holographic model of the ship. Civilian class, but heavily modified. The kind of modifications that spoke of illegal activities rather than legitimate research. One of the cubs, the smaller one she'd started thinking of as Nova for her silvery markings, padded over to investigate the hologram. The cub's paw passed through the light, and she jumped back, startled. Her brother, whom Kira had mentally dubbed Frost for his darker colouring, watched from the safety of their mother's side. The mother wolf, who seemed to radiate an aura of ancient wisdom, lifted her head to observe the hologram. Kira had treated her wound with regenerative plasma, but true healing would take time. Time they might not have. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Kira asked softly. The wolf's silver eyes met hers, and a sensation brushed against Kira's mind. Not quite words, but images and emotions. Hunters. Pursuit. The death of her mate. A desperate flight across the stars with her cubs. The station's comm system crackled to life. Research Station Novus 6. This is the independent research vessel Starwaver requesting permission to dock for emergency repairs. Kira's jaw tightened. The standard protocol was clear. Assist any vessel claiming emergency status. But everything about this felt wrong. She glanced at the wolf family. The mother's ears were flat against her head, a low growl rumbling in her throat. "Starwaver, this is Lieutenant Winter. Our docking systems are currently undergoing maintenance. State the nature of your emergency." There was a pause before the reply came. "Atmospheric processor damage. We need immediate shelter from the planet's conditions." A lie. Kira had been watching their approach trajectory. It was too controlled for a ship with atmospheric problems. She made a decision. "Understood, Starwaver. Transmitting coordinates to an emergency shelter 15 kilometers south. It's automated, but it should provide the protection you need until repairs are complete." The response came with an edge of frustration. "Lieutenant, we really must insist." "I'm afraid that's all I can offer at this time." Novus 6 out. Kira cut the transmission and immediately began typing commands into the station's security console. "Computer, initiate protocol shadow. Authorization Winter 7 Delta." The lights dimmed as the station switched to minimal power signatures. To any orbital scans, it would appear to be running on emergency backup systems only. Not officially a reason to deny docking, but enough to make it inconvenient. The mother wolf had risen to her feet, still favoring her injured side, but standing straighter than before. She moved to the viewport, her cubs following, and gazed at the ship now visible as a distant point of light in the sky. Through their growing connection, Kira felt a mix of emotions, fear, determination, and something else. A question. "Yes," Kira answered the unspoken query. "I'll protect them, whatever it takes." The wolf turned to her, and this time the mental contact was stronger. Images flowed into Kira's mind, vast ice fields under strange stars, packs of Lunaris wolves running through aurora-lit skies, wielding gravity itself to dance between worlds. This was her people's history, shared with a human for the first time in centuries. But darker images followed. The hunters coming, their nets charged with energy that disrupted the wolves' gravitational powers. captures, deaths. A species driven to the brink of extinction, yet refusing to become weapons for those who would enslave them. The station's proximity alerts blared. The Starweaver was launching shuttles, presumably to investigate the emergency shelter. They'd discover the deception soon enough. Kira moved quickly, reconfiguring the storage bay's atmospheric controls. If the hunters breached the station, this room would appear to be a sealed decontamination zone, too dangerous to enter without specific equipment they wouldn't have brought for a simple search. Computer, begin recording. Personal log, Lieutenant Kira Winter. I need to document what I've discovered about the Lunaris wolves. If anything happens to me, this information must reach Central Command. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The mother wolf pressed against her side, lending strength. The cubs, sensing the gravity of the moment, sat quietly at her feet. The stories were wrong. The Lunaris wolves weren't just animals with unusual abilities. They're sentient, intelligent. They have a culture, a history. And they'd been running not because they're dangerous, but because they refused to be turned into weapons. The station shuddered. The Starweaver had changed position, moving closer despite her warnings. Kira continued recording. I don't have much time. Whoever receives this, the hunters can't be allowed to capture these wolves, not just for their sake, but for ours. Some powers aren't meant to be controlled. They're meant to be protected. She ended the recording and encrypted it with her highest security codes, setting it to transmit to Central Command if her life signs ceased. The mother wolf nudged her hand, and Kira felt a new image in her mind. The 3 moons of Novus 6, but from a different angle, showing a network of ice caves in the polar region. A hiding place? Kira asked. The wolf's silver eyes glowed in confirmation. Another tremor ran through the station. The hunters were done playing games. Kira checked her plasma pistol and gathered essential supplies into a pack. The trek to the polar caves would be dangerous, but staying here was no longer an option. As she worked, she felt a shift in the mental connection with the mother wolf. The images were clearer now, almost like words. A name, not in any human language, but Kira understood it. Astrid, meaning divine strength, in some ancient wolf tongue. Astrid, Kira said softly. The wolf's ears pricked forward. We need to move soon. Can you travel? Astrid rose smoothly, her wound already healing faster than Kira had expected. Nova and Frost pressed close to their mother, their own silver eyes bright with trust and determination. The hunters would be expecting them to run, but what they couldn't know, was that Kira Winter had spent 2 years mapping every cave and crevasse of this frozen world. She knew paths that wouldn't show up on any scan. And more importantly, she was no longer just a lone lieutenant making a moral choice. She was part of something older and deeper now, a pack. As the station's warnings grew more urgent, Kira made final preparations for their escape. The real challenge wasn't going to be evading the hunters. It would be changing the course of history for an entire species, one step at a time. The polar caves of Novus 6 stretched like a crystalline labyrinth beneath the surface. Kira led Astrid and her cubs through passages she'd mapped during her early days at the station, their path illuminated by bioluminescent ice formations. The Starweaver's hunters had been searching for 3 days, their shuttles crisscrossing the planet's surface in increasingly frustrated patterns. Life signs detected, heading 040, crackled a voice through Kira's stolen comm channel. She'd tapped into their frequencies to monitor their movements. The hunters were getting closer. Astrid's silver eyes glowed in the darkness as she sent another image to Kira's mind. a vast chamber deep within the ice, where the planet's magnetic field created disruptions that could mask their presence. But reaching it meant crossing an exposed glacier field. Nova and Frost had grown stronger during their days in hiding. The cubs now moved with the silent grace of their species, their own gravitational abilities beginning to manifest. Kira had watched in wonder as they practiced lifting small ice crystals, making them dance in the air. A shadow passed overhead, another shuttle. Kira pressed against the ice wall, holding her breath. The cubs huddled close, instinctively dampening their gravitational signature. Astrid stood guard, her healing wound now barely visible beneath her shimmering fur. The mental connection between Kira and the wolves had strengthened. She could now sense not just images, but emotions, intentions, memories. Through Astrid's memories, she'd learned more about the Lunaris wolves' civilization, how they had once been guardians of cosmic balance, using their powers to prevent gravitational anomalies from destroying inhabited worlds. Lieutenant Winter. The comm crackled again, but this time it was a different voice, cold, precise. "I am Commander Voss of the Star Weaver. We know you're protecting the wolves. Be reasonable. Their abilities could revolutionize space travel, advance our understanding of gravity itself." Kira didn't respond, but her hand tightened on her plasma pistol. Through their connection, Astrid shared another memory of Voss's people trying to harness Lunaris powers through cruel experiments, forcing wolves to manipulate gravity until their bodies broke under the strain. A plan began forming in Kira's mind. The magnetic chamber Astrid had shown her wasn't just a hiding place. It was a nexus of natural gravitational forces. If the Lunaris wolves could amplify those forces, they're heading for the polar ridge, another hunter's voice reported. Teams 2 and 3 moved to intercept. Kira looked at Astrid. "We can't keep running. Not forever." She shared her plan through their mental link. Dangerous, desperate, but with a chance of ending this hunt permanently. Astrid's response came in a surge of determined agreement. Nova and Frost pressed against their mother, their young minds adding their own courage to the shared consciousness. They would stand and fight together. The next hour was a careful dance through ice tunnels and across hidden crevices. Kira's knowledge of the terrain, combined with the wolves' instincts, created a path no hunter could follow. But they weren't trying to lose their pursuers. They were leading them. The magnetic chamber opened before them, a vast cathedral of ice with swirling auroras of electromagnetic energy dancing across its walls. Kira quickly set up the portable shield generators she'd taken from the station, creating a protective barrier around the chamber's entrance. "All teams converging on your position," Voss's voice came through the comm. "Surrender now, and we can discuss terms." Kira switched on her comm for the first time. "You want to see what Lunaris wolves can really do, Commander? Come and watch." Astrid moved to the center of the chamber, her cubs flanking her. Their silver eyes began to glow brighter, their fur rippling with barely contained energy. Through their bond, Kira felt the ancient power building, not just the ability to manipulate gravity, but to become one with it, to touch the very forces that held the universe together. The hunters' voices became urgent, their scanners detecting the massive energy buildup. But by the time they understood what was happening, it was too late. Astrid raised her head and howled, a sound that shook the foundations of the ice world itself. Nova and Frost joined their voices with hers, and the chamber erupted with gravitational force. The auroras above became a storm of light and power, the wolves' energy amplifying the planet's natural magnetic field into something unprecedented. Through their mental link, Kira understood what was happening. The wolves weren't just defending themselves. They were awakening something that had lain dormant in Novus Six's core for millennia. Something that would ensure their species' survival forever. The hunters wouldn't know what hit them until it was too late. The gravitational surge transformed Novus Six. Ancient machinery, buried deep within the planet's core, awakened at the wolf's call. The ice world revealed itself as an abandoned lunarous sanctuary, designed to activate only in the presence of their species' power. The hunters' ships, caught in the suddenly amplified gravitational field, struggled against forces they couldn't comprehend. Voss's voice crackled through the comm one last time. "What have you done?" The planet's defense systems, dormant for millennia, created a permanent gravitational barrier around its atmosphere. Any ship attempting to land without proper authorization would find itself gently but firmly deflected. The hunters had no choice but to retreat, their quarry forever beyond reach. In the aftermath, Kira sent a full report to Central Command. The response came swiftly. Novus Six was declared a protected sanctuary, with Kira appointed as its official guardian. More lunarous wolves, drawn by some ancient instinct, began arriving from distant corners of the galaxy. Astrid and her cubs remained by Kira's side as the sanctuary grew. Nova and Frost matured into powerful protectors themselves, teaching younger wolves the ways of their people. The once empty research station transformed into a center for peaceful study of lunarous culture, with the wolves' willing participation. Years later, watching a new generation of cubs play beneath the triple moons, Kira felt Astrid's presence in her mind. The wolf shared an image of their first meeting, that desperate night in the frozen ravine, followed by a deep sense of gratitude and belonging. "We saved each other," Kira replied, scratching behind Astrid's ears as they observed their growing pack. The lunarous wolves were no longer hunted outcasts, but respected guardians once again. And Kira had found her true purpose, not in military service, but in protecting these magnificent creatures who had chosen to share their world with her. The 3 moons of Novus Six shone down on sanctuary and pack alike, their light reflecting off the crystalline surface of a world that had become more than just a haven, it had become home. Commander Voss made one last desperate attempt. As the gravitational barrier formed around Novus Six, his flagship deployed a forbidden weapon, a gravity nullification bomb capable of temporarily creating a dead zone in the protective field. Astrid sensed the danger first. Through their mental link, Kira saw the approaching threat. The other lunarous wolves gathered, their silver eyes blazing with ancestral power. This was the moment that would determine not just their fate, but the future of their entire species. The bomb detonated, creating a brief window in the barrier. Voss's elite team breached the atmosphere, their ships armed with neural disruptors specifically designed to incapacitate lunarous wolves. But they hadn't counted on what the sanctuary had become. Nova and Frost, now fully grown, led the younger wolves in a coordinated defense, while Astrid and Kira made their way to the planet's ancient control center. The wolves' combined gravitational powers created a storm of ice and energy, disorienting the hunters' targeting systems. In the control chamber, Kira interfaced with the planetary systems, while Astrid channeled her power through the ancient machinery. Together, they activated the sanctuary's final defense, a permanent quantum lock that would forever bind the planet's protective field to the lunarous wolves' collective consciousness. Voss's ships, caught in the quantum surge, were forced to retreat or risk molecular dissolution. The commander's final transmission held both rage and disbelief. "You don't understand what you're protecting, Lieutenant. These creatures could have given humanity the stars." "No, Commander," Kira responded. "They've given us something far more valuable, a reason to be worthy of them." In the years that followed, Nova 6 became known as the Howling Sanctuary. Other displaced species seeking refuge found their way there, drawn by stories of a place where a human and a pack of legendary wolves had created something unprecedented. A world where power served protection rather than conquest. Astrid and her cubs remained Kira's family, their bond deepening beyond mere telepathy into something that transcended species. Under the eternal dance of the three moons, their legacy lived on, a testament to the truth that the greatest power lies not in dominance, but in the choice to protect those who trust us with their lives. As Kira stood on the observation deck one evening, watching new cubs learning to manipulate gravity under Astrid's patient guidance, she understood that some stories don't end. They evolve, becoming legends that light the way for generations to come. The end.